3 days before my wedding, I found out my fiancée, Olivia, had been sleeping with my best man, Derek, for almost a year. And instead of confronting them, calling off the wedding, or having a screaming match in the parking lot of our venue, I decided to let everything play out exactly as scheduled. Every toast, every photo, every smiling moment captured by our $4,000 photographer. And then, at the reception, I made sure the truth came out in front of everyone who mattered. Let me back up. Olivia and I had been together for 4 years. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, hit it off immediately, and within a year we were living together. She worked as a dental hygienist, I worked in commercial insurance, and on paper, our life looked exactly like the kind of life you're supposed to build in your late 20s. Stable jobs, a townhouse we'd bought together, a golden retriever named Biscuit, and a wedding planned for early September at a vineyard about an hour outside the city. Derek had been my best friend since middle school. We'd been through everything together. His divorce 2 years prior, my dad's heart attack, both of our career changes. When I proposed to Olivia, there was zero question that Derek would be my best man. He gave a speech at our engagement party that made half the room cry. I trusted him more than almost anyone on earth. The way I found out was almost absurdly mundane. About a week before the wedding, I was setting up a shared photo album for the wedding, one of those apps where guests can upload pictures throughout the night. I was testing it by syncing it with Olivia's phone, which was sitting on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower, to make sure her photos from our engagement shoot would transfer over correctly. While I was navigating her photo app, a notification popped up on her lock screen, a text from a contact saved as D-Jim. The preview read, "Can't stop thinking about Tuesday. We need to be more careful this week, especially with the wedding stuff happening. I love you." I stood there in my kitchen, holding my fiancé's phone, staring at those words, feeling like the floor had been replaced with something that wasn't quite solid anymore. Jim. Derek went to the same gym as us. Derek and Olivia had become close over the past year. Closer than I'd really registered, honestly, because I was always working late and they'd often end up hanging out, going on group runs, grabbing coffee after workouts. I thought it was sweet that my fiancé and my best friend got along so well. I didn't confront her immediately. I put the phone back exactly where it was, face down, and I went and sat in my car in the garage for almost an hour, just breathing. Over the next 2 days, I did something that I think even surprised me. I became a detective. I'm not proud of how easily it came to me. I checked Olivia's location history. We shared our locations through an app, which she'd forgotten. I found a pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon while I was at work, Olivia's location would show her at Derek's apartment for 2 to 3 hours, supposedly while she was running errands or meeting her sister for coffee. I called her sister, casually, under the pretense of asking about a wedding-related detail. Her sister mentioned she hadn't seen Olivia in almost 3 weeks. I found more texts on a shared family iPad that Olivia sometimes used and forgot to log out of. An old conversation thread from months back where Derek had written, "I feel like garbage being his best man this weekend, but I can't stop this either." This had been going on for almost a year, since before we even got engaged. I sat with this information for an entire day, completely numb, going through the motions of wedding prep, confirming the final head count with the caterer, picking up my tux from the dry cleaner, texting Derek about his best man speech. "Almost done, you're going to cry, bro." Every interaction felt like I was watching myself from outside my own body. And then I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront them privately. I wasn't going to give Olivia the chance to cry, apologize, beg for forgiveness, or worse, try to spin some story where this was somehow my fault for working too much or not being present enough. I wasn't going to give Derek the chance to disappear quietly and avoid the consequences of betraying someone who'd considered him a brother for 15 years. I decided I was going to let the wedding happen. Every bit of it. And then, at the reception, during the toasts, I was going to make sure everyone in that room knew exactly who these two people really were. I know how this sounds. I know it sounds vindictive, manipulative, maybe even cruel to the 140 guests who'd be sitting through what was essentially a performance. I've turned it over my head 100 times since, but in the moment, something in me had gone very still and very cold, and I needed everyone, our families, our friends, the people who'd bought plane tickets and gifts and rearranged their lives to be there to see the truth with their own eyes, rather than hearing some sanitized version after the fact, where Olivia and Derek got to control the narrative. The wedding day arrived. I got dressed with Derek and two other groomsmen in the bridal suite's adjoining room, listening to Derek crack jokes about pre-wedding jitters, watching him adjust my tie like everything was normal. I smiled. I laughed at his jokes. I let him hug me and tell me he was proud of me. The ceremony itself was beautiful, by all accounts. Olivia looked stunning walking down the aisle. I said my vows, she said hers, vows that included the line, "I promise to always be honest with you," which I had to fight not to laugh at, right there at the altar, in front of a priest and 140 witnesses. We did photos, we did the cocktail hour, Biscuit, our dog, even made an appearance in a little bow tie, and Olivia cried happy tears holding him. I smiled for every photo, I danced with my new mother-in-law, I made small talk with Olivia's coworkers about how excited they were for the honeymoon to Greece, a honeymoon I had already privately decided I would not be going on. Then came the reception toasts. Derek went first, as best man. He gave the speech he'd been working on for weeks, funny, heartfelt, full of inside jokes about our friendship, about how he'd never seen me happier than I was with Olivia. The room laughed, people cried a little. He raised his glass. "To my best friend and the woman who makes him better. I love you both." I stood up before he could sit down. "Actually," I said, taking the microphone from him gently, still smiling. I had practiced this smile in the mirror that morning. "I'd like to say a few words too, if everyone doesn't mind, since Derek brought up how happy I am." The room quieted, expecting a groom's toast to his best man and new wife. Sweet, normal, expected. "I want to thank everyone for being here, especially my new wife Olivia, and my best man Derek, who, as it turns out, have been a lot closer than even I realized." I watched both their faces shift in real time. Olivia's smile froze. Derek went pale. I actually found out a few days ago that Olivia and Derek have been seeing each other for almost a year, since before we got engaged. I have texts, location data, the whole thing if anyone's curious, though I won't bore you all with the details on what should be a happy day. The room went absolutely silent. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. I could hear the string quartet still playing softly in the corner, completely oblivious. I decided not to cancel the wedding because I figured everyone deserved to actually meet the real Olivia and the real Derek before they left here tonight. The versions who let me marry her and let him stand up there as my best man, knowing the whole time. Olivia was crying, not the happy kind of crying from earlier. Her father, sitting at the head table, had gone rigid, his jaw working like he was trying to figure out if this was some kind of joke. Derek was just staring at the floor, the microphone he'd been holding minutes earlier now sitting forgotten on the table. "So," I said, setting the microphone down gently, "I think I'm going to go now. Olivia, you can keep the dress. Derek, you can keep the toast. It was a good one. Everyone else, the bar's open for another 4 hours. Please stay and enjoy the night you all paid to travel for. This isn't your fault." And then I walked out. My brother, who'd been a groomsman and apparently had no idea what was about to happen either, caught up with me in the parking lot, completely stunned, and just drove me home without asking a single question until we were halfway there. The aftermath was exactly the chaos you'd expect. The marriage was annulled within a month. We'd technically been married for about 3 hours before I told 140 people it was over, and Olivia's lawyer didn't even try to fight it given the circumstances. Derek lost basically every mutual friend we'd had. People who'd known us both for over a decade chose sides almost instantly, and most of them chose mine. Olivia's family was furious, not at me, but at her. Her father reportedly didn't speak to her for nearly 6 months. The vineyard venue actually waived part of our final balance once the owner heard what had happened, which I genuinely wasn't expecting. Online, when I eventually told a condensed version of the story, people were split. Some said I was a genius for exposing them in the most public way possible. Others said I'd weaponized 140 innocent people's evening for my own revenge, and that I should have just confronted Olivia privately days earlier and called the whole thing off quietly. Honestly, some days I agree with the critics. It wasn't fair to my grandparents who drove 6 hours to be there, or to Olivia's elderly aunt who had to be helped to her car because she was so shaken up. I think about that sometimes. But I also think about the year of lies, the Tuesdays and Thursdays, the vows, the "I promise to always be honest with you," said to my face in front of God and everyone by a woman who'd been in another man's apartment 2 days earlier. I don't think I'll ever fully decide if what I did was right, but I know I'll never forget the look on both of their faces in that moment. And honestly, neither will anyone else who was in that room.